And here's some info on the tariffs on washing machines. Let's take a look. How much more will your washing machine cost because of Whirlpool and Trump? Question and answers. LG Electronics is finishing a factory in Tennessee to build washing machines, but meantime will be slapped with tariffs on imports. Washing machine prices are going to rise, yet more Americans will be put to work as the country makes more of its own washing machines. Well, more jobs is a good thing. Let's make them better quality, okay, guys? That would be nice. And Whirlpool, with a major factory in the northwest Ohio town of Clyde, should sell a lot more washers. How steep will the prices reach? How will this all wash out? There were lots of outstanding questions the day after news of Whirlpool's victory in a significant foreign trade case against Korea-based competitors LG and Samsung. President Donald Trump agreed to a seldom-used remedy, steep tariffs, or fees on nearly all imports of large residential washers, because, his administration said, those imports substantially harmed the American washing machine industry. Signing the order Tuesday, Trump imposed import fees as high as 50% on the cost of washing machines imported from anywhere other than Canada. Most trade punishments are limited to select countries accused of playing unfairly. But Trump and his trade ambassador agreed with Whirlpool, which brought the case and said the problem needs a broader solution. Samsung and LG kept shifting production from country to country, a way of ducking narrower country-specific penalties. Whirlpool said, while continuing to use cheap labor and parts and even selling washers in the United States for less than they cost to build, a way for them to gain market share. Samsung and LG denied these claims but lost in the end. My administration is committed to defending American companies, and they've been very badly hurt from harmful import surges that threaten the livelihood of their workers, of jobs, actually all over this country, many different industries, Trump said, when signing the trade action on washing machines and another on imports of foreign solar components. What will it mean? Here is what's known. How much will washing machine prices rise? No one who knows is saying, and everyone else is making educated guesses. They have to guess because this isn't simply a matter of taking the tariffs, ranging from 20% to 50% per imported washer in the first year, then going down in the next 2 before ending altogether, and tacking on that amount to the retail tag. Companies and divisions within companies have different levels of a financial cushion to absorb or pass on costs. And they'll make numerous other considerations, from transportation to shifting factories to getting parts from elsewhere. A tariff can trigger changes to any of these. Christine McDaniel, a former White House trade economist and a senior research fellow at the Mercatus Center, a free market think tank headquartered at George Mason University, says the tariffs create a market distortion that makes it hard to predict the precise price hike. But with all that said, Gary Hufbauer, a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, estimated price hikes of about 15%. Why 15%? Hufbauer said that was based on reviews of price hikes following the imposition of tariffs on a number of products over the years, and more recently on Chinese tires. Economic modeling shows domestic wholesale prices of competing goods rises by a fraction of the new tariff, roughly 30% to 70% of the new tariff, he said. I'm assuming that washing machines will behave in a similar fashion, he said in an email. The U.S. International Trade Commission, a quasi-judicial panel within the Commerce Department, did when it reviewed evidence and heard testimony from all sides and made its recommendation. The recommendation then got passed up the chain of command to President for his final decision. The expected price hike mentioned in the Commission's report came down to a single word: a modest increase in overall consumer prices. What is modest? With apologies, no one is giving a precise definition because no one who knows wants to release pricing information publicly. And a lot of proprietary information was redacted before the Trade Commission released its files. But Samsung predicted consumers will have to pay more. Samsung said it amounts to a tax on every consumer who wants to buy a washing machine. Still, before you get excited, remember that these are temporary tariffs kicking on in new imports in 15 days and ending after 3 years. And they will go down every year during that time. That won't help if you're in the market for a washer right now. But within a year, the majority of all large residential washing machines, whether made by Whirlpool, Samsung, or LG, should be U.S. made. That means they won't have tariffs. We'll come back to that in a minute. If the tariffs are on imports, will Whirlpool have price hikes and why? Filings in the trade case suggest Whirlpool had been pressured by the foreigners' practices to make its own prices. If the tariffs are on imports, will Whirlpool have price hikes and why? Filings in the trade case suggest Whirlpool had been pressured by the foreigners' practices to make its own prices artificially low. Although many details are proprietary and Whirlpool won't discuss pricing. What is known is what the Trade Commission said in its recommendation that led to Trump's decision. In the short term, our recommended action will result in a modest increase in the domestic industry's prices and a substantial increase in the industry's sales volume, revenues, and operating income over 2016 levels as import volumes are cut in half. Asked about price hikes, Patrick O'Connor, a Whirlpool spokesman, said, "This case is all about fair competition among appliance companies and real benefits to consumers. Overseas competitors were dumping products, meaning they were selling products at prices below their own cost, hoping to force American companies out of the market. Those companies didn't have consumers' best interests at heart. An effective remedy will bring a variety of appliance choices at affordable prices." If washing machines will cost more even just for now, how could this be good? Whirlpool should be able to add a third shift to its large residential washer factory in Clyde, Ohio, generating 1,300 additional jobs, the Trade Commission said, and invest in incremental improvements there as well. Immediately after news broke Monday of Trump's decision, the company said it will add 200 jobs in Clyde, and that is just the beginning of increased investments in innovation, manufacturing, and additional manufacturing jobs for Whirlpool and its vendors. This could benefit companies such as ArcelorMittal, whose Cleveland steel plant supplies Whirlpool. The more washers Whirlpool makes, the more steel and other materials it will need. And although Samsung and LG are rather dour about the decision, Trump said it will be good for Americans for another reason. Samsung just opened a washing machine factory in Newberry, South Carolina, and LG is completing one later this year in Clarksville, Tennessee. Our action today helps to create jobs in America for Americans, Trump said, signing the order Tuesday in the Oval Office. It will provide a strong incentive for LG and Samsung to follow through on their recent promises to build major manufacturing plants for washing machines right here in the United States. So will even the foreign washers will ultimately be American made? That's the expectation. Once LG opens its Tennessee factory in the fourth quarter of this year, it will import very few washing machines, the company says. And it says it will source the parts domestically too. By this time next year, virtually every washer LG makes for the American market will come out of that factory in Clarksville, Tennessee, said company spokesman John Taylor. Whirlpool suggests that by filing its case against LG and Samsung, it helps speed along the Tennessee and South Carolina factories. Whirlpool Corporation and the people in our 9 U.S. manufacturing locations have made it clear throughout this process that we welcome fair competition and believe a strong remedy will encourage both Samsung and LG to spend more money faster to build the two proposed facilities here in the United States, O'Connor said. We believe a strong remedy in our case will help Tennessee and South Carolina, not hurt them. Why then were LG and Samsung glum about Trump's decision? Trump's decision could hurt both companies for much of this year. Samsung just opened its South Carolina factory January 12th, converting an old Caterpillar plant, and is still ramping up, so its imports of foreign inventory continue. It plans to employ 1,000 workers by 2020, but right now it has 540, according to the Post and Courier newspaper. And LG will still import most of its washers this year before it starts producing in Tennessee late in the year. As new LG imports arrive in the interim, they'll face the new tariffs. Taylor said it's too soon to know how this will affect pricing during that period. But if a 1,000 high-end washing machine has a tariff as high as 500, it could hypothetically push the price up to 1,500 unless something else gives. That's enough to make customers reconsider and buy a different brand. And while the price premium could be relatively short-lived, the loss of sales could make retail chains feature other brands and push LG to the back of the store. So you'd lose floor space as stores change their displays to match customers' desires. And it can take years of negotiations with major chains to get floor space back, Taylor said. But by next year, wouldn't things be hunky-dory, tariff-wise and all around? Tariff-wise, yes, but better floor space leads to more sales. And if the tariffs for now push up prices enough that LG loses floor space, it will lose sales. In turn, sales equate to demand to ramp up and build new washers, or maybe to build fewer if sales are sluggish because of the tariffs. LG's Tennessee plant is being built for 600 workers. So instead of having 600 employees, maybe you'd only have 300, Taylor said. That's why officials in Tennessee and South Carolina decried Trump's decision. The chain reaction, Taylor said, could slow the ramp up to full production. Last question. Trade cases are hardly unusual. Why is this one a big deal? Most cases come from a company's complaint that a foreign competitor violated trade rules through its practices in a specific country, or that a country artificially held down an industry's costs, giving the foreign industry an unfair advantage. Whirlpool made those kinds of accusations before and won penalties against Samsung and LG for their practices in Mexico and China. But U.S. trade law allows for special temporary sanctions in extraordinary cases that don't necessarily involve a specific violation. Instead, a domestic company or group of companies can say they have been so substantially harmed by rising imports that they are at risk of serious damage. Unless they get U.S. government safeguards against these imports, the argument goes, an entire American industry will be harmed. That's what Whirlpool said when it filed this case under Section 201 of the 1974 Trade Act. A broader global solution was needed, the company said, because Samsung and LG kept moving their factories from country to country to evade the narrower sanctions. Samsung and LG denied it. The other thing extraordinary about Section 201 cases is that even though wind up before quasi-judicial panels and require evidence and testimony, just as in other trade cases, the burden of proof is especially high, and the final decision is left to the president. Until this week, the last time a president issued sanctions in such a case was 2002, in a complaint over foreign steel. The World Trade Organization, a global appeals body, then struck that decision down. Most presidents are reluctant to take on such cases, which come loaded with protectionist and political overtones, and a fear of foreign retaliation. Trump showed this week that he is not.